coming down to. Liz, let's get to our guest, please.
Who is the man that would risk his neck for his brother, man? Shift! Can you dig it?
What's happening, Chris?
Speaking of illegal immigrants and monsters, did you see the FM News Talk 97.1 homepage this morning?
I did not. Were there illegal immigrants on the homepage?
They had a story, or we have a story, about a illegal immigrant Mexican Uber driver in California.
I've got the story right there.
Who was taking women home after, picking
parties
them up
and stuff, and raping them.
And raping them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but he'll be protected in California, won't he?
He will.
That's the best place to rape somebody if you're an illegal immigrant is California.
You can get away with anything in California. And I hate to call him out, but I will. One of your bottom line guests, Scott Kinley Jones, we were kind of debating that this morning, and Scott was saying that, well, that's only a small percentage of illegal immigrants, of people that are committing these crimes. There's a whole bunch of other Americans that commit these crimes. And my response to him was, well, why don't we go after the people that's the easiest to stop this type of crime, and that's illegal immigrants, and ship them out.
Instead of protecting them.
Exactly.
Right?
I don't understand this coddle the criminal type of mentality of our progressive friends.
So this dude was deported back in 2005, and he came back.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. During the Obama administration, he rushed back in hoping he would get amnesty, and he still might. He still might. I'm so upset about this. The discussion devolves whenever you get into it with a lefty over this. Joy Reid on MSNBC went back and did research on Tucker Carlson and found out that indeed some relative of his immigrated here in the 1850s, and because of that made the argument, and I've got the bite from Tucker here somewhere, made the argument that Tucker has no grounds to, he's a hypocrite for being against immigration. They always try to change the debate to immigration instead of illegal immigration.
Did she throw in a white privilege argument in there?
She did, in fact. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
No. She absolutely did. Let me find it here real quick. Here we go. Listen.
Tucker's been one of the most sort of aggressive at putting forward what a lot of people have seen as a pretty blatantly white nationalist view of what immigration should be like.
White nationalist.
So Joy Reid is accusing us of racism. Let's pause for a moment and savor the irony of that. Reid's entire public career has been built on race baiting.
Yeah, that's the truth. So he's a racist because he's opposed to illegal immigration. I mean, if they're here illegally, I don't care if they're Canadian or Mexican or Algerian or French. If they're here illegally, our system does not deal with it properly, and it needs to be fixed.
And I've said this time and time and time again. I do not for the life of me understand why African Americans and our civil rights groups are advocating for a policy specifically that is detrimental to black people, which is these low-skilled illegal immigrant workers. I remember an article that was that came out a few years after Hurricane Katrina, and it said that most of the workers, majority of the workers that were rebuilding New Orleans, the drywall workers, were Hispanics, were illegal Hispanics, let me say that, while the refugees were in Houston and in Texas and in other areas. So I can't understand why the Congressional Black Caucus and NAACP and all these people are advocating for giving low-skilled workers green cards to stay in the country to take jobs away from African-American teenagers who, in some instances, in Chicago, the unemployment rate is 50% or above. So I can't wrap my head around that.
I know you can't, but the same group overwhelmingly votes repeatedly for Democrats and Democratic Party principles, which are not in their best interest.
Well, the mentality of it, I think, is a lot of the leaders have taken the tact that even though some of these policies may be against African Americans, but what's good for the Democratic Party is ultimately is good for us. So we'll vote for this stuff and we'll support it because the Democratic Party is who we support, and maybe we can get some crumbs or something along the way, and we'll go against our own interests.
Or
it's the only thing that makes
could
sense.
see your own boat float a little higher along with everybody else's when things like tax reform get done by the Republicans, and your company gives you a bonus or gives you a raise or hires more people as a result of the fact that the economy, they've sort of taken the reins off of it now.
I mean,
right?
You know, we're kind of seeing a deja vu kind of thing. And a lot of my African-American friends don't believe this when I say this, but they can look up the stats that one of the greatest economic booms African-Americans ever had was during the Reagan administration, and that's when the tax cuts and all of that happened. You know, my parents owned a very successful beauty supply business during the 80s, and I wasn't following politics the way that I am now. I knew there was a recession, but I didn't know how bad it was.
Yeah.
But our business was booming. I didn't notice that the country was doing bad. Maybe.
Did you need hair product back then?
Yes, I
did. Oh, you
did.
did? Okay.
I had a Jerry curl, actually.
I have to give my Kojak friend a little bit of trouble here.
You know, you got good hair, man. So don't rub
I
it
feel
in.
blessed. I'm not rubbing it in. I'm just giving you a hard time. 314-969-9797. We're going to get to your phone calls here in a minute. Jeff Sessions has just announced that the Department of Justice will immediately begin a thorough investigation into these missing texts. Like 50,000 of them they think that are missing from Peter Strzok and this Lisa Page at the DOJ, and some information from Trey Gowdy that I haven't gotten to yet either. It's all coming up, and Chris is going to hang around as well. We'll get to your phone calls right after this.